start at the top. There you go. All right, so let's start at the top here. Basically, we just saw the last two episodes of The Last Dance air this last Sunday. There's one that came today, actually. Did you guys watch it?
I recorded it.
You
Not
recorded it?
yep.
Yeah, I'm probably going to watch it on the ESPN app. I guess we can watch that tomorrow, Jake, if you're going to be around.
Yeah.
It's like the Game 6 movie or something like that. So basically, just want to get you guys' final thoughts, and then we'll go into a little bit of one topic that was brought up when it ended, which was like current NBA players that would thrive in that era of basketball. But let's just start with like what you guys thought of the last two episodes and your takeaways from it. Noah, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, like the world we live in right now, every day in which every day kind of seems like it's blending together. The Last Dance episodes, I don't have like a great handle on like what episode was what. I do remember 9 standing out as kind of like a particularly good, interesting, in-depth episode. I think one that was the Steve Kerr kind of like segment, which I thought was really well done, and
Yeah.
for multiple reasons. And then also, I think maybe my favorite part of the entire series was just the examination of the Eastern Conference Finals against Reggie Miller's Pacers. Um, just thought that was really interesting. That it seems like that was really one of the very few times when uh, Jordan's Bulls in either of the three peats was really like kind of brought to the brink. And so that was it was fun to watch, and a lot of great players in that, and all of that. And thought that was really well done. So I think episode 9 was probably my favorite. But obviously I need to kind of rewatch all of it. And then, I thought it ended well. I didn't like the last episode was good. There was nothing like that totally blew me away. The Yeah, it was really really well done overall as a series. I thought episode 9 with the Pacers was maybe my favorite segment overall.
Okay. What about the Pacers kind of stuck out for you? Um, do you remember watching the series at all, or just kind of reliving it through the show?
No, I don't remember watching it like as a kid. Let's see, I was like almost 6, so
Oh,
not
is
quite.
that much of an age difference?
I was
we
almost
were
6.
okay. We were what, 11, Jake?
11, yeah. I watched.
11, yeah. I remember it. Okay.
I don't remember
Um,
it. No.
yeah, I wouldn't remember if I was 6. I barely remember it as I was 10 or 11, so I get it.
I mean,
Um,
I remember Reggie Miller, right? But I don't remember like the specifics of that series or anything like that. And I remember MJ, but again, like more as like a concept than like,
right.
you
You know
know.
what's funny? From that series of the Eastern Conference Finals, the only dude I remember Reggie, of course, but the one guy that I remember, because he was this tall, goofy motherfucker, was Rick Smits, dude. Like
Yeah.
tall white guy, but he was tough. But he was just so goofy. But I remember him so clearly, like it was yesterday in that series. And that team, when Reggie Miller said he thought that they were the better team, they actually were. Like I think they were
I
favored
think
last
he
year.
might have been, man, or I think that might have been right, just in terms of like
They were young.
overall depth
Yeah.
and balance and yeah, everything. But
Yeah.
the better team doesn't always win. So
Yep. It's true. Very true. Yeah. So, but
the thing that stuck out to me the most for the last two episodes really was just taking in Jordan as like a leader over really anything else. Like it's easy to quantify him as like the best player, and then really you take a look at like what does that mean, right? Does that mean he's the best scorer? Does that mean he's the best passer? Does that mean he's the best overall player as a shooting guard? What's his shooting percentage, stuff like that. And you can always debate that at the end of the day when it comes to subjective like stances on things. But I just feel that when you take a look at who he was as a teammate, what he did for the team. I mean, Pippen is a hell of a player. And when he was on the Blazers, it was pretty evident that he was the leader of that team. Maybe you have a different take on it, Jake, but that's how I feel. Seeing Pippen on the Blazers, seeing Pippen thrive on the Rockets, right? And they were like, when they asked Pippen, what did you think on the last like play of that game? He was like, get the fuck out the way. Like they knew like who was the guy. He wasn't. They were like he wasn't passing the ball, right? With like LeBron, it becomes all right. Get ready. He should take the shot. He most likely will take the shot, but you still want to get ready because he might pass you the ball if you're open, right? Because LeBron tends to make. It's interesting, not necessarily the best play, but like the smart play, right? Like the right NBA play, as they would say, right? But Jordan, he's just going to take it. Right. And it's because he loves the idea of it kind of being on him and taking the responsibility for that. And his teammates know that. Right. Like I was saying, Pippen, a hell of a player, knew at the time, I'm not taking the shot. Like if Jordan's not taking it, no one's taking it. We're losing this game. Right. So, or we're going to overtime, whatever the case was. But I think that was one of the things that stuck out for me the most. What about you, Jake?
But like, so here's the thing. Again, I believe that Jordan, when he had the ball, he made the steal on Karl Malone. I remember that whole sequence of events. I watched every single one of those games. I watched them with my dad because it was over the summer, and my mom and sister were gone, so my dad and I like had the whole like couple weeks to ourselves at the house. So I'd like help him with the yard work, and then we get ready for the finals. My dad wanted the Utah Jazz so bad. The thing about it though is like Jordan, he's a shooting guard. So it's just like Kobe. You could be triple team. He's a more pure shooter than LeBron. Whereas if you went back and if you look at some of Magic Johnson's, like, yeah, he has that hook shot one, but Magic Johnson tended to make more of the right pass or the play too. That's why LeBron is more compared to Magic Johnson than to anyone. But it's true. Just like, when Scotty said, and even Dennis Rodman said, when he had the ball and he was coming down, everybody knew. Everybody knows he's going to take the shot. What was crazy, though, is even back then playing defense like that, it's like Brian Russell, who was a phenomenal defender, it's just I thought it was a joke. I was like, why would you not like make somebody else beat you in that sequence? Like,
yeah, why not? Like, who's not doubling him? You know what I mean? Like in this NBA today,
right? They do it with Curry, they do it with LeBron,
right.
they do it with like the pure playmakers. Shoot, like of course with Curry, it's like if you don't double team that motherfucker, like same with Damian Lillard, same with like the real pure shooters. And I'm not saying Jordan was this pure shooter as those guys, but like he was a shooter, man. Like the guy could hit mid range, he could hit threes, and it was just interesting. They stuck to their guns with Brian Russell, and I don't know, dude. I'll never forget that shot. But what stuck out to me the most wasn't just that shot in that whole series. It was when Karl Malone. I'll never forget when Malone and Dennis Rodman got into the scramble when they kept knocking into each other down the floor.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was more fun to watch than anything of the whole series. I didn't really care because I knew the Bulls were going to win. I already knew. And my dad wanted the Utah Jazz so bad. He loved Hornacek, Stockton. He thought Stockton should have won MVP that year, but Malone won it, I believe. And just Dennis Rodman against Karl Malone, because those two guys could bang today. Like they could knock the hell out of a lot of players today. That's why I like those type of players. They were just Karl Malone was so fucking country strong, dude. Like just delivering elbows, and he would elbow Rodman and stuff. And I love Rodman, like because he was a scrapper, and so that's the stuff that stuck out the most to me in those episodes. It was nostalgia or whatever you want to call it, like nostalgic to like watch that. It just brought back the kid memories. So,
Yeah, no, that's cool. So, one of the things that kind of came from this um, whole docu-series really is the topic of taking today's players who would thrive in that era. So they didn't ask the question to everybody. I'm sure everyone would have had their own opinion. I think Pippen thinks it's like only LeBron, right? There's other players that they really go too public with it, but I think I just saw them on SportsCenter saying who their thoughts were. BJ Armstrong said it'd be Clay. Um, Magic had 5 players that he thought would succeed: LeBron, Kevin, Curry, AD, and Giannis. I mean, if you take a look at these players that they're choosing for the most part, with the exception kind of being Curry, is that these players are pretty good defensively, regardless of what they could bring offensively. And a lot of them just look at like toughness. Is there any player that kind of sticks out that maybe you wouldn't think as being really tough or a really good defensive player that would thrive in that era? Or is there anybody that kind of sticks out as somebody that you maybe someone thinks would thrive, but you're going to bring it up as someone that you think wouldn't? No, you want to start us off?
You go first. I'm collecting thoughts.
Yeah, I think somebody that doesn't get brought up too much that I think would do really well, as a local guy plays here, Devin Booker. I don't see why. I don't see anything in his game that would say he wouldn't thrive in the Jordan era. I think he'd be a good player to have, a very good player to have in the NBA then, that I think would do really well. We take a look at like toughness. Obviously players. The dude for the Clippers, what's his name? Beverly.
Yeah.
He reminds me a little bit of a less offensive threat than someone like Isaiah Thomas, right? Just someone that is kind of scrappy, get in your face, right? Obviously, the offensive game is a lot different, but just defensively and scrappiness, they kind of measure up and compare to me. But then, of course, I really do think LeBron, that would be super interesting, right? So, I mean, if you had those guys playing all together, like basketball, it'd be tough to watch basketball today, right? If you had LeBron, Jordan, Kobe, Magic all during the same time, it'd be an interesting time to see basketball like after that era ended, So, I don't know. Like, I feel Curry would do well. I don't know if I would put him in my top 5 players to do well in that era. The hand check rule. Um, I guess the hesitancy that I have in saying that maybe Curry wouldn't do so well is, the Jordan rule, right? Basically, they created certain rules for people like to not be able to touch Jordan. You had that one photo shoot where the guy taking the photo was like, "Hey, everyone get closer." And Magic was like, "Well, don't touch Jordan; they'll call a foul on you."
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So, maybe I'm mistaken, but I just feel like with the hand check rule, Curry already, for whatever reason, and maybe you guys feel different, but for me, like for whatever reason, when I watch these games, I just feel like Curry doesn't get the respect that like maybe a player like Harden gets whenever he does take the lane, which is odd to me. He does get pushed around a lot, but if I feel like he's not getting the calls now, I definitely feel like he wouldn't be getting the calls then. So I don't know. I guess that's kind of my roundabout way of saying I agree with Magic Johnson. Curry's a tough one for me to put him in the top 5. I might put Devin Booker in there besides Curry. I mean, if we went team by team, I'm sure we could break it down, but just to look at, maybe some of you guys is like top 3 players. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I think Curry might have a little bit of a tough time. If he was going to put Curry in there, then I would say like, why can't Lillard? But whatever. The guy I would put
Yeah, I
in,
agree.
the guy I would put in instead of Curry is Donovan Mitchell. I think Mitchell would have like played very well in that era. Donovan Mitchell is fucking tough. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
true.
if people don't really watch a lot of Utah Jazz games, but that motherfucker, like, he's tough and he plays scrappy ass defense. and he just can get inside and like he uses his elbows to maneuver, and like I just like his game a lot. I think he would do well back then too.
Healthy Derrick Rose.
Maybe, yeah, a healthy one maybe. Well, who else? I was thinking of somebody else. I just think because it's such a different game, they didn't really. I mean, they shot threes back then, but very rarely did you see them shoot, 30 plus threes a game and all that.
Right.
It was more guys that could slash and like get inside. And when I think of like a guy like in his prime, dude, Dwayne Wade, bro, like I think Dwayne Wade could have played pretty well in that era. Just because he had a mid-range game, and
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree with that.
he would take hits and stuff, but like
Oh, what about Jimmy Butler?
Jimmy Bucket, I was just gonna say Jimmy
Yeah.
Butler is another player,
Yeah.
like tough. Those guys are tough players. Like they don't give a shit, and
I think the consistent theme here that we're kind of picking up on is like it feels like more of the names we're mentioning right now are really solid two-way guys, where I think in the NBA
Yeah.
today there's a little bit more leniency for like the stud offensive player who kind of doesn't do shit on D, or
Right.
even the reverse, like the starter defensive, anchor who, when it comes to like crunch time in the fourth and
Right.
your team has the ball, you sub them out.
Right.
And I just think the league back then was a little bit more like you got to do a little bit of, you have to do both. And then like I think the biggest challenge in evaluating kind of like who today would play well then and who then would be good today is just like our understanding of the game has changed so much, and kind of like what was valued has changed. I mean, I think I guess if we're using the 90s as kind of the frame of reference, it was generally thought that like a layup, right, even semi contested, is going to be the best shot that's like the ideal shot you get, right? Like take it to the hole, or like get it to a big guy, post up, like get it near the rim and like do that. And nowadays, like so much, for so many reasons, a lot of it's just like technology and teams investing so much in like the kind of like analytics and front office and stuff. But partially why Steph is such a great player and has kind of like messed up is not the connotation I mean, but has changed the structure of the league so much is that he proves that even like a 28-foot off balance 3-pointer can be a better shot than like a semi open mid range jumper by a different player, depending on circumstance, right? And so just comparing the style is so difficult. I mean, I think Steph would be fine then. I don't think he would be the superstar that he is today.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because I think the physicality would it's just different. And I also, for the same reason, think that like the Patrick Ewings and like, some of the bigger guys, I don't know about Hakeem or like even Malone maybe. I'm not sure if Malone would be like the man that he was then. Like, would he win MVP in today's game?
No.
Probably not if he couldn't hit threes, no. Like straight up.
Yeah.
Stockton, I think would translate pretty well actually, because I think shooting and passing is so important now. Pippen, I just think that dude could play anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
And MJ would be fine too. MJ, if I think everyone who really follows basketball and knows his game knows that if there was more emphasis on 3-pointers back then, he would have been a tremendous 3-point shooter. But that wasn't the game then. The goal wasn't to score 120 points. The goal was to kind of grind out a win, mostly by being defensive first and really high percentage shots, right? Like point blank looks, layups, free throws, not like risky threes, even though I think, a lot of our understanding on that has changed.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So here's a list, or a photo, I should say, of every team's best player. And the Cavs need some help, huh?
Yeah.
Is that Zach? Is that Zach LaVine on the Bulls?
Yeah, that's
That's
Levine.
Zach LaVine, right?
Dude, what the fucking Valanciunas is the Grizzlies' best player?
Who
Yeah,
should it
that
be?
it could be
Dude.
John Morant, dude.
Oh yeah, John Morant. Yeah. Okay.
Or or Jaren Jackson, or
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert is not the Jazz's best player, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with it. So Trey Young, how would he do?
And back then,
Yeah.
uh, well, I think
Role
like
player.
it just depends, you know, like
Role player.
if that, yeah, that type of player back then doesn't have like the leeway that they do today because Curry really changed the landscape. Like crazy ass threes, running off picks, like 2 or 3 picks all over the place just to get the ball to shoot a wide open three. Like that wasn't the offense back then. Like Noah said, it's like get the ball to the post, triangle offense. You run off of like you throw the ball in the post or you throw the ball on the wing that's on the block, like upper block or sorry, the elbow, and you have guys rotating and there's I think they said there was Phil Jackson said there's like 38 or 39 combinations of offense, but those were all mid-range. That was all type of mid-range plays, and that was to get open layups. Whereas, you know, nowadays it's running off screens and doing crazy shit to get a guy an open three. So I think he'd be a role player. Kemba Walker plays defense.
Well, I think let's go back to Trey. I think you bring up a good point. And just kind of thinking about it as you were mentioning it, does Trey even exist today had it not been for Curry?
Right.
Does Trey Young, the player, with the changes the NBA went through because of Curry, because of the Warriors, let's just say in general, is Trey the same player today? Is he playing like that when he's in college? Is he putting up those shots? Had the games are not transitioned? So I think that's a more fair question than how would he do back then.
I think the answer is no, man.
Right.
Straight up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that. Kemba, yeah, I mean, I'm taking Kemba first round every year, so that's how I feel about Kemba. I really like the guy. Watching him at UConn, seeing him succeed in Boston, I really do anticipate the NBA playoffs coming back. And if it's Lakers, Celtics, watch out. That would be a hell of a series. So, and I think Tatum would transfer over pretty well too. His size says a lot. Reminds me a lot of Pippen, to be honest with you. Less boisterous, maybe not as much of a leader, but I think Tatum would be doing okay too.
Yeah, man. I like Kemba. I like Kemba a lot. I've always loved Kemba. I always loved Kemba because he was tenacious, like on defense at UConn, and then it kind of he didn't get a lot of like love because he played at whatever the Charlotte Bobcats or whatever they were,
Right.
and I just like him, man. He's grimy, he's grinded out too, and he reminds me. I like him, Donovan Mitchell type players, Jimmy Butler. Those are always like Noah said, two-way players have always been my favorite type of players because they're overall whole basketball players. Same with Klay Thompson. He's my favorite Warrior because he plays both sides of the ball. So,
What do you think, Noah? Kemba and Jason Tatum?
I think they'd both be good. Back then for sure.
What about KD and Kyrie?
I think KD would be out of this world good back then, frankly.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
I don't know, man. Kyrie, I'm pretty mixed on Kyrie. I think, yeah.
Do you think Kyrie can ever win a title being the best player on the team?
Today, like in today's world,
I would say any world, really.
I I think he could win a title being the number one scorer. I just don't think he does enough in other areas where he could be like. I think he would need a lot of help, but I think he could be the go-to scoring option.
Yeah. I think
So LeBron was kind of grooming Kyrie. I know we're getting kind of off in the weeds here, but LeBron was kind of grooming Kyrie to be that guy in Cleveland. Do you think if LeBron would have stayed in Cleveland, passed the torch to Kyrie to be the scoring leader for that team, that they would have maybe won? Because basically we're looking at no, because he left that year after. Yeah, I mean, do you think that Kyrie and LeBron would have put up a fight against the Lakers or the Warriors in 1819?
no. I think it changed when Durant went to the Warriors. I think nobody stood a chance, to be honest with you. That's
Barring
just
injuries, of course, but yeah.
right. I just think the year that they did win it was pretty crazy and amazing, but I thought when that was the Warriors team, I thought that was pretty evenly matched. I even thought the Warriors were a better team, but yeah, Durant just kind of put him over, dude. Like Durant's he's a phenomenal player, man. Like,
I think in many ways, Kyrie and LeBron are too similar, right? They're playmaking guards. Kyrie is more, I think, more of a pure scorer, whereas LeBron is like really in his element as more of a assist man and playmaker and just all around guy. But I think that's why that didn't fit super well. And I also think there's ego shit there, right? I think there's some pretty good evidence that Kyrie is not the greatest locker room presence or I don't know, like the organization first kind of guy, which is really going to be tested. I think the Nets moving forward are going to be super interesting.
I think so too. Like, how does looking at Kyrie as a
just
player,
got fired too, right? Like
right.
that happened right before this whole thing.
Right. Looking at the player that Kyrie is, and let's just compare him to Westbrook. Like, how does that going to play out any different than Oklahoma City did? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see them kind of moving forward. I agree.
I think Westbrook brings more on defense. Frankly, I mean, I like Westbrook more. I like his fire more than Irving, but I also think just in terms of like a team burden, I think Westbrook is more of, for all his deficiencies, I think there's a lot he does outside of scoring, whereas when it's not the playoffs, I'm not sure if you can say the same thing about Irving.
I'll say this, and you guys can have an opinion on it. If KD wins a championship with this Nets team, right, with Kyrie and then the base around him, so not bringing in anybody else that's like a superstar. If he wins a championship with this team, it's going to be hard not to put him in the top 5 best players of all time.
Man, because
what that's gonna tell me is that he basically was like, "Fuck this, I'm taking over. We're winning the fucking ship, and it's gonna be because of me." Like that's the way I look at it. I mean, that's the only way I can see the Nets winning a championship with KD and Kyrie is if KD's like, "Fuck y'all."
That's kind of the conversation we were having to start last pod, though. Is like, all right, let's just do this. If you're drafting a squad and you get 5 guys, right, to win a basketball game, any 5, you're telling me you're not going to pick and everyone's at their peak. You're telling me you're not going to pick peak Kevin Durant to be on that team?
First?
Not first overall necessarily, but top 5 in your 5.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't imagine anybody that wouldn't take him in the top 5. Oh, you mean like all time or like today's players?
No, I'm talking about all time.
All time.
Dude, he's a fucking 7-foot lethal shooter, like, and does a lot of other. That's what I'm saying about that debate from last time, like of all times. Like, Yeah, of course his resume is not as good as a lot of other guys because so much of like your resume is like it's contextual, it's team oriented. Who was in the league then? Like like who did you play with? Like who was your coach? What kind of system did you run? All of that stuff. I'm just saying like if you're building a team from scratch and you have 5 guys to go, even if Durant's not in the top whatever of that list, I still think like it's really hard to look at him as a selection and pass on him on that team. Like I think I don't know. I would want MJ, Braun, Durant, you know, and then give me 2 others, Magic, Bird. I don't know. Like I just that's debatable, obviously, but I think there's something. I think there's something real there.
It's a good question because basically you got to like be like you're trying to decide, do you want to put together the top 5 players to win that game, or do you want to put the top 5 team, like the top 5 on a team that would win that game? You know what I mean? And top 5 players on the court, yeah, I'm taking Durant. But is he on my starting 5 of my all time? I don't know. I don't think so.
Based on what though? Based on how they would play together, or based
Based
on
off on how they
their
would play
careers,
together.
or what?
No, based on how they would play together. Is
Oh,
the way
dude,
I'm looking
I
at.
think he could. I think he could play super well with anyone, frankly, if used right. I love talking Durant. I could talk about Durant all day long, but
he might be my starting small forward.
That's that. Just the bigger point is like that's the problem with ranking the top players. Is like, what are we talking about here? Like,
right?
Is this a draft? Is this a comparison of their careers? Is this a projection of where their careers may land? Like, is this like biggest impact in like a societal like dude, like Walton being like so high up there for like as an NBA player, like he was one of the best collegiate players of all time. I don't think he was one of the best pros of all time. Obviously I wasn't alive for that, but
I think he's high because of his impacts.
So there you go.
Yeah,
so
right.
he's a recognizable name,
right.
And he's on ESPN and stuff. That to me does not warrant him being on the list ahead of other worthy guys. I was listening to Bill Simmons today, and they were just he was just so upset about Isaiah Thomas being ranked so low, and he was saying that
that's what I mean. Yeah.
To him, point guards like it's Magic and Isaiah 1 and 2, even today. Yeah. And he thought, and I'm a Curry guy, but he thought, and he is too, but he thought Thomas being ranked like 30 spots lower than Curry or whatever the difference is was criminal.
My starting 5 all time is Magic, Jordan, and I guess I would go Kevin Durant there over Bird, LeBron at power, and then Shaq at center. That would be my top 5 all time.
Nobody's losing to that team.
Maybe you're missing like a post back to no, because you can just put Shaq down there and he'll do everything for you. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Jake?
I mean, I probably would side with Noah. That's why I didn't think Durant should have been outside the top 10. I thought he was a top 10 all-time greatest player. And I also thought
already, right?
Yes. And I always thought that was my big thing is a lot of people forget, like, yeah, Jordan was young and Isaiah Thomas and those bad boy Pistons were older, but they fucking put Jordan in his place, dude. Like, that team was no joke. And Isaiah Thomas is a great point guard, man. He was amazing. He was tough. I don't know if they there's like a documentary. I don't know if it's on him alone, but he'd fight guys like back then in the late 80s, early 90s. He was fucking squaring up with dudes like twice his size, just throwing fucking punches at him and stuff. Like he was tough as shit. I just like guys like that. But as far as top 5 all time, you could make a case that Durant, could easily go in there. That's why I've always thought,
especially if he wins a
again,
chip, right, with the Nets.
right. And if they do win the chip, Durant's going to be the lead dog 100%. Kyrie is not. Dude, I saw Kyrie with the Cavs by himself. He was a nobody. And I saw him play with the Boston Celtics. And until LeBron, like you said, LeBron was kind of trying to groom him, I guess. But Kyrie is, I think, get his first organization second. And but anyway, back to Durant. I just think if the Nets are ever going to have a shot to ever win it, it'd be on Durant. But you just don't know. You got to see his health after this injury. But pre-Achilles, Durant could easily make a. He could make a. A lot of people could debate that he was better than LeBron. I mean, he's fucking crazy good, dude. Like that was always my knock. I was like, there's no way he should have left OKC. I thought they were good enough to win one or two, but
if they stayed with or without Harden,
I think the problem there was that was when the market was growing and Harden wanted to get paid. They couldn't pay all of them, so I get that. Harden was a sixth man. He was coming off the bench, for Christ's sake.
Right.
Now he's like considered an MVP, I guess, whatever. But I just think even with Durant, Westbrook, or you tell Durant to stay, we're going to get you a guy like Paul George, right, or something. I don't know. Not Paul George, maybe somebody more. I can't think off the top of my head a player, but I really think Durant was good enough to lead to win a championship, even in how everything was going. I mean, they should have went to the championship that one year. They lost to the Warriors. They were in the finals about 3 or 4 years earlier. I think if he would have stuck it out, maybe he wins one, but he didn't want to just win one because Dirk Nowitzki stuck around and he won one, and nobody's like, oh, he's the greatest or he's on the top, Right. And that's where it goes. It always goes back to arguments of rings, and that's where I always get annoyed about the rings argument. But I think Durant's a phenomenal player, man. Even though I hate the guy, I respect him, And
how many games does this team? How many games does this series go?
Read it off for the listeners. The one guy. What's his name?
What was his name?
Jordan KD.
Fan number one. That's his name. Read it off for fan number one.
Magic, Jordan, KD, LeBron, and Shaq versus Curry, Kobe, Bird, Duncan, Hakeem. How many games is the series?
It's a 6-game series.
That's six. Six.
Yeah, 5 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah. You have KD and Bron with Jordan. Holy fuck.
Yeah. Well, I'm putting basically what I think would be the best team versus the second best team. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say 5 at most. They'd go
5 at most. They're smashing them, huh?
Oh, dude.
Curry would, for them to have a chance, Curry would have to explode at least 2 games, right? Like if Curry could put up 40 in 2 games, then, I think that team stands a chance. It'd be a hell of a game to watch, that's for damn sure.
It'd be fucking fun. I think the Curry team could win a couple. Like if you play this series 100 times, I think the Curry team could win minimum like 40%. But
40% of the series or 40% of the games?
40% of the series. If you play a 7-game series 100 times.
That's a lot. I don't know if I don't think they'd
I think they're that even.
Win a series? Yeah, win that even?
Yeah, I think they're actually that even. I mean, dude, we're talking about Larry Bird, one of the best shooters of all time. I Duncan is funny, man. He's so like unsexy as like a player, skill wise and personality that he just gets shit on. But I think he's incredibly underrated.
Well, that's the thing
Historically,
with this Curry team. It's super unsexy, right? Bird, Duncan, Hakeem.
yeah,
Right?
but they fucking ball, dude.
Right, right. You see what I'm saying? Like I think that's where they get their wins from is, passing fundamentals, right?
That's why
That
I think they
Magic,
win.
Jordan, KD, Bron team. I mean, that's just brute strength and talent,
That's why I
right?
think each team wins 40% of the series, and then the other 20 could go 15-5 or 12-8 or 10-10 or I mean, I think one side's definitely better than the other, but I don't think the difference is that big.
One game elimination. What's the score?
One game elimination.
Because we're mixing eras now, right? We're talking Jordan's era where it was like 89, 86 final score versus now where you're playing, 110, 106 final score.
I think
So
we're in the 90s.
you think we're right in the middle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the score of the game that Jordan's team won versus the score of the game that Kobe's team won?
Yeah, that's a good question. Jordan's
I think
team. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think if Curry and Kobe's team or whatever, if they won, it's gonna be a higher scoring game for sure.
Yep, for sure.
And then if the Jordan team wins, they're gonna lock them more down with defense and stuff. Shaq at the rim, yeah. But like
So would
said,
do you guys feel it's safe to say first team to 100 wins?
Are you going with the Elam scoring now?
Based off of what you guys are saying, right? First one to 100 wins, because if it's going to take an 80 something game for, or 90 something game.
Pose that question though. Who wins in a first to 100? I think that's actually really interesting because with
Yeah.
Curry, Kobe, and Bird, you have three great shooters. Bron's not a 3-point shooter, though obviously he can hit threes. Shaq can't hit threes. KD's a stud. MJ can shoot. And Magic, I actually don't know Magic's outside shot. Like, that's not what he was known for.
Yeah.
Who's Curry guarding? Yeah, that's the problem right there. And how and who's guarding Bron?
Yeah.
Duncan?
Yeah.
No.
Duncan can guard Bron.
No, he can't, dude. No, he can't.
God, dude. Nobody can guard Durant, all those players either.
That's true. I think that's my bigger concern is who's guarding KD, right?
Right.
I don't think anybody from any era could guard Kevin Durant at his
Kawhi Leonard.
Maybe, dude. That would have been fun to see in last year's finals, but
yeah, that would have been.
It sucks, man. That fucking sucks.
Well, there's someone we didn't talk about, Kawhi. Like, obviously, in my opinion, there's no question he transitions over really well.
Yeah, me too. I think he's more of a Pippen player than.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Kevin Love is interesting to me. Cavs, Kevin Love, maybe not, but like UCLA, Kevin Love, yeah, I think he would do well in the Jordan era NBA.
So large Kevin Love versus small Kevin Love is what you're saying?
Was he a big boy at UCLA? Yeah, he was a big boy.
Yeah, dude.
Dude, the dude wore knee braces as a senior in high school or freshman when we played him. I was a senior and he wore knee braces, dude. He was a 15-year-old. I was like, what the fuck? It was so weird. He dropped like 42 though, and we went into double overtime. It was the semifinals. They beat us. It's crazy.
Luka's everywhere. He's fine. Defensively, he would really struggle. And maybe you know what? Maybe I'm just assuming too much here because in today's NBA, Luka does really well. Euro League, obviously, Luka does really well.
Right.
But this is something that we could.
right?
Right,
What if
Tony Kukoc, right? Yeah.
played
Luka has a
today's-
much sweeter shot, I would say, than Tony Kukoc.
Kukoc wasn't a great defensive player.
No, he wasn't.
But neither is Luka, right? I mean, I don't know too much.
Yeah,
about
but
Luka.
isn't he only a rookie? He's hella young.
This is his second year, I think. Yeah.
This is his second year?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, because now they had the dude for the Knicks, right?
He was,
but then now
he was
got
the
to play with him.
18-19 rookie of the year.
Right. I mean, so let's talk about the guy that I feel would be the worst transition. That's a good player, right? Not like the worst, but that's a good player that wouldn't do so well, and that's for me. That's Harden.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think it's coming across as hate a little bit, but I don't know, man. I really just don't think his game would transition really well. I don't know. What do you think, Noah? I know what Jake thinks already.
I mean, dude, like, so I just feel like there's just been a huge shift, right, and stylistically. Like, ISO ball was allowed, but only in the post back in the day. That's how I feel about it. And maybe that's not true, but I just don't see a lot of like, okay, cool, we're going to like get somebody on the wing, everybody get the fuck out of the way, except for like the MJ, like at the end of the game situations, right? But that just wasn't like a regular season thing. With Harden, he gets a rebound, he dribbles it up, he waits for the shot clock to go down, people just kind of stand around, hands on their knees or hips, and then he does like a step back three and just jacks one.
Yep.
That just wouldn't be allowed back then. I feel like I just think coaches would have no tolerance for that, and it wouldn't happen. Not only that, but like I just don't think. I think with the way that Harden operates and how much he relies on getting fouled, right? Like the reason why he can drain threes is because defenders know that if they get up on him too close, he's going to go by them and then they're going to have to foul. And so that's a good outcome for Harden, right? And so they have to give him a little space. He does the step back or he does a crossover or something and gets a little more room and jacks it up. With those rules back then and less emphasis on ticky-tack fouls, I just don't think he's getting to the line nearly as often. I don't think he's creating that space. I guess the counter argument would be that he's facing much more athletic defenders today than he probably would be then. I don't know if I fully agree with that, but I don't think that's a good. Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's a very clean transition. And then defensively, he's kind of a nightmare regardless. So I don't think that would go great either.
Yeah.
I got a question for you guys I just thought of. You've got 7 years to win a title. All right? 7 years to win a title. Who are you building your team around? Are you building it around Harden and Westbrook? Or are you building it around LeBron? Who else?
LeBron. Like,
Clay.
It's over.
I'll put De'Aaron Fox and LeBron together.
So 7 years, right? Because basically, if you're taking LeBron, your second guy is going to be leading that team in 3 years. You know what I mean? Because basically, you're taking LeBron's only going to be in the league for 2 or 3 more years, right?
All right, so you're not getting
See what I'm
7
saying?
years of LeBron.
No, you're not getting. You're getting LeBron today. You're getting LeBron today
So
and Harden
2020.
today.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So
you got
Harden.
7 years.
Okay. All right. Harden and Westbrook versus.
Let's say LeBron and Mitchell.
And you're just going for one ring.
You need one ring. Yeah. Who are you building? You're taking
I'm taking LeBron and Mitchell.
Yeah, me too. Because even though I only got 2 or 3 years with LeBron, I just don't see it happening, man. With Harden, especially taking up that much cap space. Like, who are you building around him? A bunch of role players. LeBron's going to retire in 3 years. If he doesn't get you a ring, you have a lot of cap. You can bring some people in.
I think
surrounding Donovan
LeBron
Mitchell.
or I think Harden and Westbrook can win one together. I just think a lot of other things need to fall into place, and a lot of it's outside of their control. That roster, like, I don't know. It again, we talked about this thing last time, but I think one of the more interesting storylines of this regular season was like how that team was shaping up with Capella out of there and more just kind of like or they got Covington in there now, and it's more just kind of like a bunch of wings playing together versus like a more 1 through 5 lineup, which is really interesting. But dude, I mean, we saw with the Warriors. We've seen it with every championship team. Like if you don't have like you need to have some kind of structure. Like with the Dubs, like what was able to sustain Steph and Clay and Dre was like we had a really good bench, right, for those first couple seasons when we won one and the one we lost, and then the reinforcements came with Durant, right, and so like there was like something to like boost, right? With Harden and Westbrook, like there needs to be more kind of like roster molding to like provide, I think, to provide like resources where they're not good, right?
Well, here's the thing is,
Yeah.
what are they missing? They're missing a post presence, but what big man's going to want to go there?
I mean, I think it's a big man that, isn't a scorer. It's like it's a guy that like knows his role, like in terms of I just want to see their.
Dude, I think a Kevin Love now going to the Dubs would be a beautiful fit, but that's just me. I think he would do some of the little dirty work like he did in Cleveland, and he'd get his shots every once in a while, because doubling Curry, Clay, and you have now Love who can shoot from the 3. I think Love would play well with the Dubs, but who wouldn't play well with the Dubs?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call out.
I got my eye on somebody else though.
Yeah, we know.
Oh yeah, of course you do.
Oh man.
The thing about
honestly though, like it wouldn't even be fair, bro. Like we talked about this with Durant again. I hate bringing it up, but God, it was so fun to watch. But then at the end of the day, like, dude, honestly, if we lose Draymond to get Giannis, I still think it's not. I mean, God, dude, you're gonna Clay, Curry, Giannis. Like, who wouldn't want to be on that team? You're gonna get you're just gonna see the ball. It's gonna be open. You're gonna be open to take these shots every single time. I don't know. It just wouldn't be fair. I'd rather solidify, see if we can develop a young guy, see if Kirk can develop one of these rookies, whether it be Obin, whatever that guy's name is. Obi, yeah, whether it be Obi or the dude.
I don't want him.
You don't want him? What team did he play for? What team does he play for? I don't even know who that guy is.
Obi Toppin played for Dayton. I think he could be good. I don't think that's the guy. But dude, just looking at the Rockets stats this year, Harden played 36.7 minutes per game. Westbrook played 35.9, so 36. Tucker at 34.4. Capella played 32, but he's gone. Covington played 32. And then we're talking about Daniel House. I don't know how we're saying that. Eric Gordon, Austin Rivers, Ben McLemore, who had kind of a nice year, I think. And then Jeff Green, who was really good at some point, but is older. Damari Carroll. I'm just saying, that's not Harden and Westbrook, they're the face. Can they get it done? Sure. But you gotta like have guys to like alleviate the pressure. Like, dude, that 73-9 Warrior team, just like the amount of depth and balance and just team chemistry through just like the, not to get all cheesy with it, but like seriously through strength and numbers, which was like the freaking motto or whatever. Like that shit was real, man. It meant that like Steph and Clay could, didn't have to be on all the fucking time in order to win the game.
Yeah.
And in a regular season, I think that really matters. In the playoffs, it doesn't really fly, but these
Right.
guys play a fuck ton of games, and when you're playing like 80, in the 90s and hundreds of games, right, close to 100 games a year, being able to save your legs a little bit and get out of those situations in the regular season because you have that roster, I think matters.
Mhm.
That's why, like, I think Boston is going to be in such a good position moving forward. Just they have so much depth and
Yeah.
other teams that are like younger that have that balance and depth that can kind of like grow together. Like those are the teams that can make runs like for the long run.
Like, how are the Lakers going to look post LeBron?
Like shit.
Yeah. AD is going to complain again,
Dude,
right?
their whole team is him. If
Yeah.
if LeBron left today, hypothetically, if he was not a Laker and it was AD in that roster, they're not making the playoffs.
Yeah, I truly believe that too. All they have really coming off the bench is Kuzma, and
Without LeBron there, he'd be starting.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, it's interesting. A lot of players wouldn't be there because LeBron's not there, right? So it's just, yeah, there's like a whole different way to look at things. Like whenever a certain player leaves, right? I mean, look at the Bulls, right? It wasn't until they drafted Derrick Rose, that they became even relevant again.
Yeah, that's nuts. It's like freaking 10 years later.
So, right? Yeah. So one of the quotes that stuck out for me from the movie or from the docuseries, I guess, was Jordan's gift was not his ability to hit a shot, but rather his ability to be in the moment. And when it was said, they were showing the scene of him being in the back of the bus, listening to music as he was going into Game 7, right? So it was almost like he's just there, wherever there is, he's in the moment. So what does that kind of mean for you guys? Is that something that you guys think about when you think of like Jordan or just anybody in the league, or like what are your thoughts on that quote? Just general thoughts, I guess.
I just think it was a testament more like the ability to be in the moment. Like he was just a general, and the big thing that all his teammates will say is he made all of them accountable. Like he even said his first go around the three-peat, then you had all these new guys coming in, Kukoc, Kerr, God, who was the other guy? There was a couple other players, and he's like, these guys are just nice, and they were all having fun. And he's like, no, you guys don't understand what it takes to like win a championship, let alone a fucking three-peat. And he was a general, dude. He was just there's the lead by example, but there's also talk shit and back it up and hold guys accountable in practice. He was meaner and shit, but he toughened guys up, and he made it known that I'm going to be so hard on you. So when game time comes, if I have to give you the ball or if I can count on you, it's like being in the trenches with somebody. You don't want to have somebody who's soft like next to you. You're going to die. Like, I don't want to, compare this to wartime, but like, that's just how it was with them. They thought of it as a war. And Jordan was like the ultimate general, man. And I still go back to what Bobby Knight said about him. He's like, it was in the late 80s. And he's like, I don't know who this kid is, but this kid, I would go to war. I'd be in the trenches with this guy. This guy's a fucking killer. And big time coaches like that who can see stuff like that, they know. And I just think that was more of a testament of his overall just love for the game, but also the things he had to do to get guys to play up to their highest potential. And he knew how to push certain people, like you said. Whereas maybe Kobe you could say Kobe was like that, but Kobe would just didn't give a shit. Like he'd be like, "You're a fucking bum. Get the fuck out of here." Where I think
Like Kwame Brown must be suffering through some extreme PTSD, huh?
what I mean, dude. Like he
Played
would,
for played for Jordan, and then played for Kobe.
Jeez.
yeah,
That sucks. That really just sucks.
As a kid out of high school, you're
right.
getting it from Jordan, then you're getting it from Kobe.
And
Man.
it's tough, man. Like you either have guys who can deal with that shit and put up with it, or they're soft and they don't. And like Jordan said, he
Yeah.
had the ultimate respect for Steve Kerr when Steve Kerr got into a fight with him,
Yeah,
and
get it
Jordan
back
felt
down.
so bad. He picked on the littlest guy, and he felt bad, but Steve Kerr gained Jordan's ultimate respect because Steve Kerr didn't put up with his shit, dude. He was like, "I'm gonna fight back," but that showed that Jordan was like, "Okay, this guy's a fucking gamer. He's tough.
Yeah.
Like, he will play his heart out." That's it's I'm like an old school, like old soul. Like I loved guys like that playing with and whatnot. And my dad taught me that's how it was. And it's different these days. You got a lot of different personalities. I don't know if it's so much as they're weaker kids these days, but like that doesn't fly as much. Coaches can't fucking lay into you either. A lot of these stars, because they'll just talk right back to them and stuff. And
Right.
it's just interesting. Like
Yeah.
Noah said, it wasn't allowed. Certain things weren't allowed back then either. So
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, definitely a different take on like what it took to win. Right. You can get any group of 5 guys if they played together and they had that killer mentality, they had a chance to win. Now it's like, well, the best, at the end of the day, talent's going to win the game, right? So,
Yeah,
it's interesting how those things have changed.
And just real quick, when we go back to say who could play in the 90s or whatever, that's a huge factor to me. Who's the mentally tough guys today, like Jimmy Butler? I thought like a Tony Allen back then would be fine. Just those meaner, nastier guys that like they come from a lot of them come from fucking tough places, and like Patrick Beverly, and that's a huge thing. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't think of Devin Booker as the toughest guy, but I think his game would really transition well to the 90s game. So, all right, Noah, what does that mean to you, man? That quote from the Jordan series?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think what it gets down to is that like he was just really kind of like built for the moment, just from a mental toughness perspective, like Jake's saying. And
well, I'll give you one thing to kind of think over, because this was something that stuck out to me when it came up in the show. Was the press conference after Game 6, right? They asked him, what's going to happen in Game 7, and he's like, "We're going to win the game." Right? It's funny how things have changed, right? Like if you look at that thing today, I believe LeBron and Wade said it when they were on the Heat, and it was seen as cockiness, when back then it was seen as this killer mentality, right? So what do you guys think about, what do you think about that, Noah, like in terms of maybe just taking it from that perspective, what that quote could mean today versus yesterday?
You mean the press conference quote?
That and this, right? Because they kind of relate, right? Like being in the moment, like Jordan would be like, this is my moment, right? We're gonna win this game. There's no ifs, and, or buts about it. This is what's gonna happen.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the context is pretty important there, right? Like the D Wade, LeBron, Heat stuff was like celebrating rings before they even played a game together, right? Yeah. That's at least what comes to mind to me when I'm thinking about them, which I think caused a lot of animosity towards them, and I think rightfully so. That was cocky, right? And they didn't deliver on it. Yeah, they won 2 rings, which is a great accomplishment for sure. But they were talking about like a decade worth. Yeah, exactly. Sure.
Not 4, not 5, not 6.
Right. So that is cockiness. I think with Jordan, one, he had done it, right? So
he did. Yeah, that's true.
He had a track record. And I also think, yeah, dude, it's just self belief. Like I think he worked hard enough where he knew for within himself that like he had kind of put in the work in order to get it done. Um, do I still think Indiana had a chance to win that game 7? Absolutely. So it's not
Sure,
always
yeah.
that straightforward, but
Yeah.
yeah. In terms of the quote that you're talking about, from the author in the doc, um, yeah, I mean, that's it's a cool quote for sure. Um, I think. What do I think? I mean, I think that's kind of like that is ultimately what separates a lot of great athletes from really good athletes, right? Is that they're not like, you know, they're so in the moment that everything is about that moment, right? And they're not caught up with like the ramifications of winning and losing or kind of like
Well,
or
I think that was maybe
yeah,
all they had to focus on as opposed to today, right? So maybe it was easier to be in the moment than it is today, right? Like the phone. Who was it? Was it was it Embiid or something? I can't remember who it was, but he was caught on the sideline, right, on his cell phone,
Yeah.
and that wasn't even an option back then. Like that technology did not exist. You know what I
But
mean?
think
You
about
know,
when Jordan lost. They lost in the series. I think it was the first go around when they lost. Oh God. Oh, they were losing to the Knicks or something, and they were down 2-0 to the Knicks, and then somebody saw him gambling with his dad
yeah,
hmm
before,
hmm
right? Somebody saw him. Think if shit like that happened today. You got
right,
people with cameras and all that shit,
right.
like the scrutiny and everything, right? So
yep,
I just think players are such under like, dude, the microscope, even Durant, and some of it is self-inflicted, but dude, like give the guy a break. Like even I'm too hard on him. It's just, the stuff that people like they breathe wrong and people have to make a big deal out of it. It's like, good God, these days it's
yeah,
unbelievable, man. It's crazy. So
yeah,
Well, that's yeah. As much as we both all agree that KD is going to go down as one of the best. When you mention his name, there's going to be a lot of people when they first hear KD, they're going to think of what he's done on social media, right? These ghost accounts, these like responses to people on Twitter, like they're just going to be like, oh, I remember that KD more than I remember the NBA KD, right? Because it seems like there's always two types of people now. There's the person you are in the job you do versus the person you are, off the court, right? And it seemed like a lot back then was there was this level of, who is this person as a player? It wasn't really too much like who was this person as a person. Like if you think about it, we're only finding out this stuff about, Jordan. Like there's things that reporters, people in the media are saying like, "Oh man, I just found this out watching the documentary on Jordan," and it was their job to know about these guys, right? And now the
yeah,
documentary's out. Now they're finding this stuff out about him. Well, I didn't know that he was on the floor, crying about missing his pops. Like I didn't know what that was about. No one ever really talked to these guys, right? There was no social media outlet for Jordan at the end of the game to tweet like, man, when you saw me crying, this is why I was crying. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't that. They didn't exist. That level of scrutiny didn't exist. Um, and that's why it's so hard for players. I think like LeBron, Curry, right? When you think of like wholesome, like this is who they're kind of portrayed as being because of their social media accounts, and they don't have that track record of lying to people on Twitter or whatever the case be. You know what I mean? Like they have this XYZ type formula that they follow that allows them to be these like global image type guys, right? That again, there's positive and negative, right? Because Jordan was never what LeBron is today. Jordan never started a school. Jordan never, did all these things that LeBron did, but it's because of the opportunities that, was allowed to LeBron just having the social media presence that LeBron has, as in addition to being a great player, obviously. So it's just a lot different. It's a lot different. So if, we want to put that to bed, I guess really the only thing now to talk about is kind of when do we see this thing picking back up? We got some news coming out today on Bleacher Report saying that the NBA has pretty much decided between two venues starting mid-July, and that would be in Houston and in Orlando. So what do you guys think about that? Obviously, it would be without fans. They made that decision. It would be without fans. So.
Hope it happens.
I mean, so I'll send you guys this thing. There was I think it was the governor of Florida. He went off today about, we don't have to get into it, but how wait in 2 weeks, New York blew up with this thing and COVID this, COVID that. And then he's like, wait in 2 weeks. He's like 8 weeks later and our rates are so down, this and that. And he's like, and you guys are all trying to write this mysterious boogeyman is going to come out and so, whatever. So he went off on that. I think it's a safe place. I think they've done really well in that state of Florida to have it. But again, Charles Barkley made a really good. I mean, he Charles Barkley got it, but he made a really good point of what are you going to do? Put them and their family in like a bubble of a hotel? Then you got to like test. What about all the workers that are going to bring them food service, beverages, room service, all that stuff? Are you going to keep them? Are you going to test all of them too? And he's like, it's too, because those people who work there, they got to go home to their families and whatnot, and their families go to work or their significant other or whatever, and they might get it from that. It's a tough one. And I don't know.
So the question posed to the players was for us to start back up, if there's a positive test, right? Somebody tests positive, we cannot just shut back down, right? Like we have to be willing to play through that. So, that alone brings up a lot of feelings, right? Like obviously for somebody that knows somebody that's had it, that maybe had it really bad, versus somebody that just feels like this could be like a hoax put on by Democrats. Like there's extremes, right, to both sides, you know what I mean, or the liberals or whatever you want to call it.
A hoax put on by the liberals.
Yeah, you should see some of the stuff that is on Reddit, bro. Like just these crazy, like both way accusations, right? So I'm saying if you're taking the extremes of the situation versus what a level-headed person would say, which is like, hey, look, if we test positive, or if someone tests positive amongst the 16 teams, which is what, 250 players, right? Like we have to agree that we're not just going to stop playing basketball. Like we're going to continue to play. Obviously that person be put out, right? But then we're going to continue to play. Like what if, what if something nuts happens? Like what if the first person that gets it is like LeBron, and the Lakers are in the playoffs, and now LeBron's out for 2 weeks? Like what? Like, like what is that? They're gonna be out. They're gonna be the first seed. And they're gonna be out in the first round.
It would suck, dude. Frankly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or do you let them play through it? As long as LeBron's feeling okay, do you let him play through it?
I just think there's way too much potential for backlash if you let them play through it.
But if you don't let them play through it and LeBron has it and it's as catchy as people are saying it is, you need 6 feet of separation to not get it from somebody. Like that means everybody that was guarding LeBron or was on LeBron's team is probably going to get it.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Like,
like what's the tipping point? That becomes a question, right? Like what's the Where is the line? Does the line exist?
I think it definitely exists for sure. I think this is my personal opinion about sports. I think the issue with sports opening back up, other than the obvious logistical issues, I think the biggest issue really is that in the eyes of so many people who aren't necessarily big sports fans, this feels like it feels irresponsible, and it feels like it's setting a bad example and whatnot. I'm not saying that's what I believe, but I do believe the NBA and baseball, and maybe less so the NFL, because the NFL is just like a big middle finger organization. But I think baseball and basketball in particular are going to be very, very conscientious about how they're perceived by not necessarily the sports community, but like the world at large. And if they feel like they could receive backlash for bringing it back too early, then I don't think they're gonna do it. I mean, or they're gonna need to justify it in ways that I don't know, that we can't really.
Can't you bring back baseball, golf? I mean, soccer's back in Europe. I mean, I don't know if you saw that or not, but soccer's back in Europe. I mean, they don't have a bench, right? They just sit on the sideline, like in the first row of the stands, like socially distanced.
Are there fans or no?
No, no fans. No fans.
No fans.
Yeah. So, you could bring back baseball. I mean, the baseball diamond, like that. I knew that the name of it, right? Is like is distanced, right, amongst the players.
Have you been to?
I've been to a few. I don't think I've made it through one, but I've been to a few.
You're kidding me, right?
I don't think I've ever seen the ninth inning of a baseball game.
Are you kidding me?
No, I really don't. I don't think so. I don't think I've ever seen the ninth inning of a baseball game live. That is on TV. I definitely have.
Because you were too drunk to remember. Because you were so bored that you couldn't stand it anymore.
It's a coin toss between those two for sure.
Damn, man. I wish you liked baseball. Baseball is fucking great, but
hey, you guys, Jake almost went. You talked to Jake, he almost went to the league, So
yeah, I did know that.
I just can't believe you don't like baseball, and the fucking Giants have won 3 World Series in the last.
Yeah,
hey,
we're
look,
good, dude.
Hey, look,
we suck now, but
did I make money? Yes. Was I happy about that? Yes. Does that change my perspective on? Does that change my perspective on Major League Baseball? No.
You're doing that, man. That's your angle,
bro. I was fucking with the Giants when they were winning. Like, I was a fair weather Giants fan, right? But even then, I'm not gonna watch a full game.
You'd rather watch some random NFL game than.
My God, 100%.
Oh my God, so bad,
dude. I would rather watch the Browns and Bengals 16 games.
Oh my God, dude.
Rather than a baseball game. I don't know.
This is so sad.
I don't know. The attention span, I guess, the millennial in me is
so sad. Anyways, what were we talking about before that? Oh, yeah. No, you're right.
You're right. You could play baseball, right? I mean, the positions and the players are separated, right? I mean, at least 6 feet. The only person that's not is the person running the bases, right?
So the other component that I didn't speak about that's probably way more important for the league and the owners and the players is the revenue piece. Like, of course, you could play baseball, and I think with baseball you could avoid that political backlash of like, oh, they're not like in baseball you don't like you are 6 feet apart pretty much all the time except for in the dugout or in the batter's box or anything like that, or if you're on base. But even still, right, it's like not that you're outside, all of that, right? However, if you don't have fans, then your revenues are gone, and that's. I'm not super interested in like the money conversation about this, but at the end of the day, that is what is kind of like fueling whether or not we can or cannot do this. Yeah.
If you believe their numbers, right? Because one of the things that kind of came up, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but there's people, reporters, I should say, for Bleacher Report that are saying that the NFL is lying, that it's not 40% of their revenue stream, having fans in the stadium. It's significantly less, like closer to 20 or 25%. But if you believe the number that the leagues are throwing out, which is 40%, then I feel like there's ways you can make that up. If it's 20 to 25%, I almost am pretty damn sure I can think of ways where you can make that up, right? You get it on YouTube, you get it on Amazon, you just get more ways to stream the games or to put the games on TV for more people, for it to reach more people. And look at the NFL draft. Like, look what happened there. It was the most watched draft. Like, it's because we had something live. It wasn't even a sporting event. It was just live, right? And that drew people. So what does that mean? More marketing opportunities. You can upcharge for that time slot, right? A lot of companies are hurting now for some revenue, but there are companies like Coca-Cola or Pepsi or like companies that are strong standing companies that will pay for this time slot, to be there. Disney's not going anywhere. The fact that ESPN is pretty much owned by Disney, like, they have the money, they can make this happen. I think the only thing keeping it from happening is this, like you mentioned, Noah, this is PR stance on things and what the public backlash might potentially be.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is unfortunate, because I think you can have things like baseball, which, hey, you know what? If they had a baseball game tomorrow, I might make it through 7 innings. You know what I mean? Like,
emphasis on might.
Emphasis on might. Yeah. If it's like, I don't even know. I don't know.
How many baseball teams could you name?
I can name them. Like, if you name the city, I can name the team.
What if I didn't name the city? Did you get all 30?
I don't know. You want to test me right now?
Should we do it by division?
No, hell no. That's definitely not happening.
Then you're not going to get it.
I mean, there's the Dodgers, right? LA Dodgers, the Los Angeles Anaheim Angels, right?
Nice.
Okay. Seattle Mariners, San Francisco Giants, Oakland A's. I'm going to say that covers the West Coast. So I miss anybody on the West Coast?
Yep, you missed one.
Who did I miss?
Padres.
Oh, okay, yes, I wouldn't have mentioned them. So that's one I would have missed. Working our way east, Colorado Rockies.
What about your state?
The Diamondbacks.
Nice.
What's that?
I was laughing at Noah. He's like, nice.
I'm going to say New Mexico is without a team.
Yep.
Texas, you got the Houston Astros, the cheaters, right? There's a big thing about them.
Okay.
The Dallas? Does Dallas have a team?
He doesn't know the Texas Rangers, bro.
Oh, the Rangers, right? George Bush. Yep, there you go. Texas Rangers.
Nice.
Dallas doesn't have a team, do they? San Antonio? No.
The Rangers are Dallas.
Yeah. Okay. Florida's got a couple teams, no? They got the Marlins, the Miami
Marlins?
No, I thought it was the Florida Marlins. No?
They changed.
Oh, they changed. Okay. See, they changed.
And I'll give you a hint. The other team starts with a T.
Okay. Yeah, I need more than that. What city are they in?
Jameis Winston city.
Oh, the Tampa Bay Rays.
There you go.
Right? All right. the Boston Red Sox, the Chicago Black Sox,
Oh, White
or the White
Sox.
Sox. White Sox. Okay, the White Sox, the Yankees, the Mets.
I feel like the middle of the country is gonna be really rough for you.
I'm not honestly. I think I'm tapping out. I think that's what I got in terms of teams that I can name.
What about Pennsylvania? Who's in there?
Pittsburgh. So you got the Pittsburgh. Right, I know.
I love the Pittsburgh Pirates, man.
Pirates. Yeah, there you go.
I like
is there a Philly? Oh yeah, the Philadelphia Astro. No. The Liberties. What's the Philly? What's Phillies? The Philly.
The Phillies.
Oh, the Phillies. There you go. Yeah, okay. That's what I said. That's it. Yeah, that 30.
Sure, that's 30.
All right, let's go with that. And golf is obviously a sport that you could play, social distanced, right? You're just not gonna have people cheering for the golfers, which is whatever. Yeah, man. Like I get it. Basketball built this like reputation, I think, of being a very progressive league, which maybe to hurt them a little bit today because they're so progressive that they don't want to lose that image. And those that are most progressive feel like the country should still be shut down, right? So it's hard to go against those that you feel might be the prevailing opinion of your fans.
I'll say this. I'm a sports fanatic. I love any type of sports really, except I'm not a huge fan of watching soccer, but that's just me. And as much as I want personally for these athletes to get back and play and everything, but if a majority of them don't feel like it's safe or they're endangering their families and whatnot, then I got no problem with that. You can't argue against that. So, and why
what do you think about that players meeting between? It's funny that Harden wasn't a part of it. It was Curry, LeBron, KD, Kawhi, Westbrook. I forget who else. So there's a couple other players on there as well. That basically all said, yeah, let's get back to playing.
I think that each player, I think a guy like LeBron kind of has a personal agenda to me. Of course, he wants to play because this is one of the best chances to get
a championship.
Yeah,
and he's rested too. Rested for the playoffs.
Cause even more. But then you go back, let's say another sport, and that guy, the Snell guy, was it for Tampa Bay Rays? He's like, why should I risk my health and my life and take less money just to make you owners richer or whatever? And he's like, I don't want to do that shit. And
so that's funny, right? Because it's like he's saying two things in one sentence, right? Why should I risk my family and my health for less pay? So it's almost like, so you're saying you would risk them for the same pay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's interesting, man, because it's like, what do you when you break down what these athletes are saying, it's like, what's the root of what you really mean, right? When you take a look at Curry, who says, yeah, let's get back to playing, is it because he's assuming that the playoffs are done, or the regular season is done, and he's like, yeah, go ahead and play, man, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Or does he feel like, yeah, let's all get back on the court and resume the regular season? So there's a lot of factors, man, that kind of goes into people's opinions, like you mentioned, Jake. But what do they want? What do they mean? That could be a whole different game.
I think personally, too, a lot of, especially being an athlete, you're on the road or you're putting work into your craft every single day, and, they're not able to do that so much lately. But now I know facilities are opening, but when you're stuck, like, no offense to family and everything, but like when you're stuck in your own home for that long, it's like, Jesus, they probably want to go and get back to working and stuff. So I get it. I get both sides. What I'm trying to say.
So here's some scenarios that have been playing out. A couple of gyms opened up in Arizona. Lifetime Fitness, I would say, is probably one of the more it's a gym that's spread across different states as opposed to like Mountainside that's focused in Arizona. And they opened up earlier. Lifetime spread across more states. Asked their members, right? Like, what do you guys want us to do? And basically they decided, yeah, let's open up on Friday, right? So even when the people were given the choice to open up or stay closed, it appears like there's a lot of opinions changing, right? To where it's like, yeah, let's just open the fuck up. Meanwhile, you got LA County basically saying we're going to close for another 3 months. There's this interesting thing, man, that's a technology being derived from like again, like what do you believe, right? Like, so some people are saying it's Bill Gates that's putting this thing together where it's like a chip that is not going to track you, it's not going to do anything but track your health for you, right? So if you get like COVID or something happens to your health, your phone will ding and be like, you need to go bounce, like go home or whatever, you might have COVID, right? Like, so you need to social distance yourself, right? So it's basically going to track people and their health. Like, I don't know. I think, to me, I wouldn't do it. That seems extreme, but like I'm right on that cusp of like pro tech versus pro like not tech, right? So I just feel like it's an invasion of privacy. I really do. They can say it's not going to do X, Y, Z, but Facebook said they weren't going to do X, Y, Z with Facebook, and it did X, Y, Z for sure, right? Which is things like selling data and stuff like that, tracking your websites and things like that. So a lot can be done with this type of technology, good and bad, right? So it's like, what liberties are you willing to give up to be able to have certain freedoms, right? So, what are you guys' thoughts on that? What do you think, Noah? You gonna put this chip in the back of your ear so you can go to a Dubs game?
I think the number one question is like, how long is this shit gonna take? You know?
What if they develop it to where it's instantaneous testing for every disease that could potentially happen to the human being? Right? Like, what if it's like, okay, COVID's done, but you should keep it in because X, Y, this other disease might come.
I don't know, man. Right? I'm not sure if I would want to live my life like that. It sounds kind of shitty.
Yeah.
Frankly.
That's the problem, I think, is it sucks that, there's this disease and everything, but at the end of the day, like Noah said, living your life in total fear, like, is that a way to live? And, this is unfortunate something that happens throughout the world. It's happened before. It'll happen again. I'm just really happy that the truth is kind of coming out that it is very contagious, but it's not as deadly as they forecasted. So that's always good news. But it is, it's a disease and it's contagious, and does need to be dealt with the way it has. I thought we did a really good job at first. Now that they're saying it's not so deadly, kind of getting things back together, getting going. But when is the right time to do that? I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I try and read everything I can, but if it means, I'm not going to try and rush to go see a game or whatever, rush to go do something even now.
Yeah. Well, I did. I mean, like I told my wife, man, I told Debbie, I told her, I was like, look, I'm going to keep acting as if nothing is opened up. But if the numbers stay where they are right now, come June 1st, I'm in the gym. Come June 6th, I'm driving again for Lyft and Uber. So I'm willing to wait a week or whatever. We're left with like almost a week and a half to see how things go over the next, week and a half, numbers wise. Because at this point, everything's being tracked for these states that are opening up, like Georgia, Florida, Arizona, pretty much on a daily basis. In Arizona, there were 43 deaths yesterday, right? Two of them were COVID exclusive, and they were, I think it was both people are in their 80s, So, it's like people that want to stay closed are like, look at how many more cases are coming up every day for the states that are opening. Well, yeah, it's because they're opening. So obviously it's going to spread, but also more tests are coming out as well. So there's more likelihood of you getting tested positive. My concern is how many people are dying and what are the ages of those dying and what were their other underlying concerns. For someone like my mom or my dad, I'd be very concerned. Their health is not well.
Right.
So I'm telling them to stay inside, to stay safe. My mom is doing it without any really other choice because of her situation. But my dad, like, he feels like he needs to go out, go for a walk, or do some of the things he was doing. He's doing a lot less of it. But also because he's doing less of it, he's like, I'm tired more. I feel a little more weaker. Like, it's not good. So, like I said before, like, what's the line? What are you willing to risk so that you don't catch something that you may not even know you already have?
Yeah.
Well, on that note, gents,
You want to
stay safe.
You want to see people dying? Check this out. Look at this.
Not really.
Coronavirus in Pittsburgh. Researcher killed in apparent murder-suicide was close to making significant findings related to COVID-19. Basically, there's this guy in Pittsburgh that was close to finding the cure. Not cure, because you can't cure a virus, but, the antivirus or whatever you want to call it for COVID-19. And he was a researcher, and he was killed in his apartment building.
That's
like, why would they?
up.
Why would they? I'm telling you, bro. Like,
gotta be the Democrats.
It's gotta be the Democrats. No, it's not even that. It's like, bro, like, is this fucking, like, what is this, dude? Like, what are the odds? You know what I mean?
That's
like,
fucking weird. That
you know?
Weird.
Dude, that's what's crazy is there's so many things like this that happen, and it'll be a big conspiracy, and it's just nuts that stuff like this does happen. It makes you wonder about the government thing, but who knows?
I mean, pharma, right? Like, what if he was like, "Hey, man, I found like a thing so that people don't die from it, and it's like natural. Check it out." Yeah. Like, oh, so I can't make money off of this? It's like, no. It's like, all right, well, 2 shots to the dome, bro, you're dead. You know what I mean? Like, if we're gonna come up with a cure, we're gonna make money off of this motherfucker. Like, I'm not telling them just B12. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. What's your B12? You know what I mean? Like, fuck, dude. These guys are, gangsters, bro. These guys are gangsters.
Yeah, it's interesting. I gotta do a whole charade of talk about this, but I'm not gonna waste it's.
I mean, there's levels to it, right? I mean, that's kind of like you're probably gonna say, like, there's levels to this whole situation, and, like, what it is, right? I mean, there's no denying it exists, right? So for, like, the extreme other side where it's like, oh, this is all a hoax, like, let's not fool ourselves. The virus exists. People are dying, right? Let's not downplay the fact that this is something that's very, very bad for a certain portion or percentage of the people in the United States and across the world, right? Families are, there's people dying. Families, moms, dads, they're dying. Kids, right? They're dying, right? But one of the things we haven't figured out is kind of like the underlying factor behind the why. And sure, they say it takes 18 months or so to find, what's the word I'm looking for here?
A vaccine?
A vaccine, right? Yeah, a vaccine, right? It takes 18 months or so, 12 months best case scenario to find a vaccine for something like this. But why aren't they saying at the very least, like, take care of your health, right? Like, the only thing I can think of why the CDC or the WHO wouldn't say things like, hey, take B12, get vitamin D, go out in the sun, is because who doesn't want to hear that? Coca-Cola, these fast food restaurants, like, they don't want people thinking like, hey, the way to survive this is taking care of your health, which also means don't drink Coke. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows? I'm not gonna I think Noah's over it too.
Yeah, I think Noah's over it too. What are you gonna do with the $33 million, Noah?
Dude, I don't know, man. That's fucking crazy, though. Good for Joe Rogan.
Yeah, man. Good for him. He's making more money doing podcasts than he did anything else. And we're talking like stand-up comedian, actor, MMA, ringside announcer, like all the things he's done. And he's making the most money he's ever made from a podcast. Crazy.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome. Good for him.
Yeah, man.
For sure.
So.
All right, boys. See you in a week.
Yes, sir. See you. Let's plan on next Thursday, but if we want to change anything, we can change them up.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, Roger.
All right, fellas.
Good stuff.
See you tomorrow.
No, of course. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Bye.
All right.
Later, boys.